So good afternoon. My name is Steve Clark. I'm the Director of Cloud Alliances for Armis. We're going to talk about redefining cybersecurity for modern threats with Armis Centrix. Before we get into the product piece, I just want to talk about what we do in Marketplace. So hopefully you're leveraging Marketplace. It's a very fast way to roll out product, procure product. Secondly, helps you leverage your commit if you happen to be having an EDP. You can burn down those commits. Super easy to buy. We have global access for the product suite. So it's really easy to, whatever region you might be in. For those who are in Gov, we're in Gov Cloud as well. And then no disruption. So what do I mean by that? We give you the capability of tying in the other vendor solutions. I'll go through that. So why look at Armis? Really, it's the challenge. So today, 40% of connected assets remain unmonitored. Right? You think about, there's a particular customer that I know who ran their scan using our tools, ran it against their ServiceNow, and realized a third of their assets weren't covered. I was just in New York with a financial services company, and about 6 months ago, they had a knock on a door from a 3-letter acronym saying, you guys need to take a look at your critical infrastructure, your elevators, your lighting, your HVAC. The average team is facing a backlog, 121,000 findings. In the industry, we call this threat fatigue, right? So how do I deal with all these threats? How do I take all these threats, figure out which are the highs and mediums and the lows, and then hand them off to my analysis team to take care of these? This is the killer. 197 days before you know there's something in your network. And then to top it off, it takes 70 days to contain it. So as you talk to various vendors, we all talk about time to remediation. This is the critical thing, right? Something's in my network, I need to find it, then I need to triage it, and I need to keep the business up and running. So we really got to get this 69 days down to something a lot more palatable. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So what we talk about at Armis is, the question is, what do I have? What's out there? What are all my assets? Where do they reside? Where are my IT, IoT, my medical devices, right? What am I doing in the cloud? What's important? What I mean by what is important is, what's a high threat, what's a medium threat, what's a low threat? And by the way, a medium threat might be more impactful to the business because it's affecting 10,000 devices. A high might just be affecting 1. So how do I figure out what's important in my environment? And then lastly, how do I fix it? Right, so if you've been around in security as long as I have, we all talk about, hey, I'll give you all this alerts, but how do you fix those alerts? How do I deal with that? How do I make sure that my teams are able to keep the business up and running? So when you talk about what do I have, right, these are all the critical assets that are sitting in my environment. Figure out what's sitting out there, right? Assess all that information. Number 2, what's important? So we just talked about, how do I figure out the scans coming from Qualys? Earlier up here was Tenable/Trellix, right? How do I take that information? We partner with Wiz, we partner with Qualys, we partner with CrowdStrike. We take direct feeds from GuardDuty, from AWS. We take all of this data and we help you figure out what is really critical to my business? What's the risk to my business? And then how do I fix it? Right? So how do I take this information and assign it to the right people in the organization? If I'm looking at, a scanning tool, that might only be providing 25% of what I really need. Right? So how do I leverage the other tools in my environment and be able to address what's happening? So what we have is what we call Armis Centrix. So a cyber exposure management platform. So we look at account management and security, right? Complete assessment of all your asset types. OT, IoT security, right? What do I have in that space? How do I see and secure all those IoT networks? My physical assets. Medical devices, right? So I'm going in to get a CAT scan. I'm going in for open heart surgery, right? I want to make sure those devices are protected. So we have the functionality that allows us to make the Siemens information secure, the information from General Electric, right? All your medical devices. Viper Pro is where we really consolidate and prioritize all of those threat vectors and all that information and the findings. And then more recently, early warning, right? This is kind of like my analogy for the heart attack. Wouldn't it be nice if I went to the doctor and figured out, hey, you have to take better care of yourself. So early warning allows me to figure out how to take better care of my network. And we do all this in a nice graphical form, right? So I can see on here, what are my total assets? I get the visibility of everything that's happened in my network at real time. So here's what the platform looks like. I'm not going to read everything. I'm going to kind of pick some of the highlights. I mentioned some of the integration partners, right? And if there is someone that's not on here, we can definitely work with them via an API. The telemetry we provide, right, that's that whole visibility about what's happened in my network. The early warning aspect, right? So we're at an AWS conference, got to use the term AI, right? So AI and machine learning to help us figure out what's happening in my environment. We can feed, as I mentioned earlier, into like ServiceNow. We work closely with Fortinet or Splunk, so I can take all this data. It gets really loud when I walk over here, by the way. Take all this data and then feed it up. Network enforcement, right? We've got Cisco, we've got Aruba, we've got Palo Alto, and then of course ticket workflow. So just imagine I've got Jill and Bill. I can go in and create a workflow as I find these threats, and Jill will solve that issue, and then Bill has his own set. So I'm taking this all the way down to the individual folks in my team who have to do the remediation. So asset management security, so full asset inventory, right? So once again, even cloud and even your virtual machines, right? So don't just think IT and IoT. And complete asset security posture management, so we do a complete gap analysis on your environment and figure out where you are from that hygiene standpoint, right? Once again, am I healthy? Internal next-level compliance reporting. I was at a meeting yesterday, and there's more compliance issues coming out every single day, right? So we take a lot of that functionality off the plate for you, tying that in. Network segmentation and enforcement. I've been around long enough to remember NSX, right? This is 20 years we've been working on network segmentation. The longer we do network segmentation, the more complex it is, and how do I see all my assets? So once again, this is where we help with that. This graphical display shows me, how many VMs do I have? How many mobile phones do I have? We can take this out as far as doing the lighting in your parking lot, right? So there's a lot of information that we can gather from these various devices. So the IT, OT aspect, so once again, we detect all the vulnerabilities in your OT environment. Additionally, bridge that IT gap with the OT folks. So the bank that I was talking about in New York, they have a separate team for IT and OT, but they feed into the same IT infrastructure, right? So we have some other tools that allow us to also give you that digital asset information that's not part of your IT and your OT environments. Medical device, we talked about this obviously. The capability of looking for the visibility within these environments. The one that was interesting for me is, I use another 3-letter acronym, is what happens if there's an FDA issue I have to work on? So managing what's happening in those environments, protecting patient safety. I mean, the last thing I want to do is be going in for surgery and some Wi-Fi system breaks in. I no longer have my surgery scheduled, right? We have a great case study that talks about Wi-Fi being broken that affects what's happening in the airports. So you have to think about this is more than just my lighting system and my HVAC, right? How does it affect my business? So Viper Pro is really our prioritization and remediation solution. So the capability of automating, consolidate the security findings. We were talking to a large OT organization yesterday, and he said he was seeing about 30,000 scans. We showed him how we can take that 30,000 scans and drop it down to like 2,000 or 3,000. So we really allow the users to get better granularity. Prioritize response. So as I mentioned earlier, if 1,000 devices are affected and it's a medium alert and only one is affected but it's a high, we'll help you figure out, I probably should address the 1,000 first, right? I always use the example like Fidelity. Think of Fidelity where they have 2 business units. They have My 401k and they manage $6 billion for like the California State Teachers Fund. By the way, my 401k is not $6 billion, but think about that's how they have to prioritize their business, right? They care more about those entities, right? And then established ownership, right? So we leverage AI to figure out who's actually going to manage this, who's going to take advantage of stopping these threats, and who's going to go out and use the skills dashboard to remediate those. So early warning, right? So we use a lot of information out there to figure out what's happening out there from a vulnerability standpoint. Prioritizing of real-time exploit data. I'll get into this on the next slide or two, but we have billions of devices that we are monitoring out there. So not just your devices, but potentially similar industries. And then, of course, get in front of these, right? We want to get in front of these threat actors. So we don't just use monitoring of our solutions, we're looking at what's happening in the dark web, right? We're taking a look at using our own internal assets that we have and really helping you prioritize how do I go out and make sure I have the right security hygiene. So in summary, think about the three aspects of it. We really look at protection. So I want to be able to look about your entire environment and reduce risk. I want to go in and prioritize what you have. So in essence, I want to save you time. And then I also want to get that MTTR down. I want to get it down from 69 days. Before we close out, I have a couple more quick slides that are about Armis ourselves and then some of our customers. So we have 35 plus Fortune 100 customers. We are growing at a very critical rate, 60% year-over-year. I'm making sure I'm not going to blow my ear off again. This is the one that I mentioned earlier. So it's actually 6 billion. 6 billion devices that we're tracking out there today. And then when you think about the technology, we've been around for a while, but this is also really critical, right? We've got some great backers from an investment standpoint. So when you think of startups, I would not say we're a startup. We are a privately held company, but we've got a good foundation. Now for the big art chart. So when you think about it, I hate the term we can help you sleep better at night, but guess what? Mattress Firm is a customer, so we can help you sleep better at night, right? The ones that are on here that are pretty interesting to me, I mentioned Tampa International Airport. That's an actual case study of ours. Mainline Health, another case study. They actually run inside of AWS as well. And then the one I want to talk about is, it's in the transportation category. It's not the one that was breached, not the one that had the CrowdStrike issue, I should say. So it's the other one that's up there, a public case study. They were being asked to identify all their assets, right? So they realized they had thousands of assets. They were also being asked to do this because of regulations. So they brought in our solution. They were able to figure out where they were versus their assets they showed in the ServiceNow piece versus what we were able to discover for them. They were able to classify those assets, and they did all of this ahead of the requirements coming out from the Department of Transportation. I'm not going to quote him exactly, but he basically said that one of the best parts about Armis was it wasn't we were just a one-trick solution. We provided integration with some of the other solutions they were offering, some of the other tools that they had in place. I have a really smart guy here, Brian, with me, because I'm just a sales guy. Brian's the engineer. So I want to thank you for your time. I tried to keep it at 15 minutes, give you guys back 5 minutes. Happy to answer any questions. And we are literally 2 booths over right there in the middle. If you guys want to come by and see a live demo of anything that we're doing.